So we start this chapter off with Megumi and Shoko at Sumiki's grave. It's a pretty sad affair considering how Sumiki was one of the few people that Megumi had growing up, but Megumi seems to be at peace with her death and just wants her to look good in the afterlife. Shoko is there. She mentions that Gojo should have let her handle Geto's body, which is true, but Gojo did not want her to handle the body of someone that she was really close with. They start walking. Megumi gets a call. Shoko looks at her cigarette one more time and throws the whole pack in the trash. Kind of symbolizes how she's also maybe at peace with what happened, like letting go of her past, because Shoko smoking cigarette only happened when there was conflict in the story. During the Shinjuku arc, she would be smoking a lot. We then cut to Tengen's barrier. After the battle, they found Tengen's vestiges along with Sukuna's remains. They seem to be using Sukuna's remains along with Tengen to hold up the barrier in Japan. I feel like there's more here than meets the eye, because you can see the Kyoto principal being a little bit suspicious about the whole thing, saying that there's no need to rush, and then they cut to his face looking suspicious. I feel like he knows more than he's letting on. Now we cut to Maki, who is talking to Miyo and Daido, the swordsmith and sumo wrestler she met during the Culling game. She's pretty much telling them that they have to get rid of all the remaining Culling game players by using Yuji's abilities and Hana's to separate the cursed objects from the victim. Maki here is pretty much just warning them to hide in Tokyo since there's still a lot of curses in that area and people won't be looking there. She tells them she's done protecting them. Maki is clearly stuck between wanting to protect them and doing her duty as a sorcerer. Daido then says that when it's his time to go, she'll take on Maki. Maki turns around and smiles. I like this interaction because it's kind of revealing of their relationship. Daido is telling her not to worry about getting rid of them, but they're both warriors that respect each other. Next we cut to Charles working on his manga, finally achieving his dream after giving up because the Culling game destroyed everything. Then we cut to Takaba talking to someone who looks a lot like Kenjaku. They seem to be rehearsing a comedy stand-up, which is typical for someone like Takaba. This part made me laugh when I read it for the first time. Now we see Rin apologizing to a person that he seemed to have bullied a long time ago, but the person just walked away from him, and then he tells to himself that he has to do better. So a lot going on in this chapter. They seem to be just wrapping up a lot of subplots from the side characters. Now we see Higuruma, and he seems to be talking about having no charges pressed on him for all the killings that he did during the Culling game, as I'm guessing. But it seems that Jujutsu HQ helped out with this, but they want him to be a sorcerer in return. Higuruma probably would kill it as a sorcerer. Sukuna even said he had the potential to rival GOJO. He can easily climb up the ranks and become a special grade. Now we cut to Hana and Megumi. Hana seems to be embarrassed about the time she went to hug what she thought was Megumi, but ended up being Sukuna. Megumi goes on to tell her that he'll take responsibility and help her as her right-hand man. Hana takes this as Megumi proposing to him and tells him when's the ceremony. This takes Megumi for surprise, but Hana was like, oh, well, I guess I took it too far. We then cut to a girl entering her apartment. She then asks what appears to be her boyfriend if they could go out to eat, but when the guy turns around, his face looked all messed up. This one kind of took me for a surprise because I was like, is that a curse or a human? But apparently the girlfriend is seeing his boyfriend as this, so it's not the boyfriend that's looked like this, it's just the girlfriend is seeing him as that. We then finally see the trio back again. They're back to doing missions. Kind of reminds me of their first mission together with GOJO, where Yuji and Nobara have to go in a building and exorcise a curse. This chapter does feel like the end, but it also feels like Gege setting up something. There's still no mention of GOJO. Hopefully we'll get something about him in the last chapter. Yuji is back to his usual self. He's smiling, but Megumi looks odd. He has like a killer look. Like ever since he came back, he hasn't been the same. He looked like what GOJO looked like when he was about to face Sukuna. He just had that intense focus. So I wonder what's going on with him, but I'm not really surprised considering what happened to him, having been absorbed by Sukuna and having his soul dipped in evil like that. Also, Yuji just being back to his normal self is kind of a bright side to all this, considering how much he went through. So what do you guys think is going to happen in the last chapter? Will we see mentions of GOJO? What's the announcement going to be? Is this truly the end for Jujutsu Kaisen? Let me know what you guys think.